Okay, ladies, let's discuss the proper way to view your children, because there's a lot of shit going on in my gender that I can't stand. And one of the biggest things that I see happening that really bothers me is this propensity for women to use their children as tools and weapons to get what they want. So instead of creating a new life, for the purpose of creating a new life, a new little bundle of joy that you're going to shape and mold and create into a decent human being who's going to go out and conquer the world and turn it into a more decent, beautiful place for future generations. So instead of that, I see women out there conceiving to trap men into marrying them. I see women out there just they abort their babies when it suits them. Like, it's something that is just really painful to deal with, you know. Like, as a woman who wants a child, I see all these other women out there, and especially like the feminists, and they screech about wanting the right to kill their child. I mean, they already have the fucking right, and yet they feel this need to expand upon it. Like, no, you don't understand. It's not good enough if you just let us do it when we're raped. No, you have to let us do it whenever we want to do it. Yeah. Oh, and it can't just be early on either. It has to be all throughout the pregnancy. Like, there's people out there who want to kill their children all the way up until the time of birth, essentially. You know, have you ever heard of a partial birth abortion? Yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, there's so many fucked up things in this world, and the fact is that we're killing our own children. I don't know. I guess the only solace I have in this is maybe the dumb people are killing themselves off. I don't know. I still think it's detestable that we have this mass genocide in our country. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I think I have. The statistics are staggering. 53 to 60 million children killed in this country over the time from now since when Roe versus Wade was passed. It's really gross. It's really disgusting. And then you guess what they do with the dead babies? They take the stem cells from the dead babies and they sell body parts. Like, it's really fucking gross. And it goes into, like, cosmetics for old women and shit like that. It's really fucking gross. And I don't think people understand, like, the massive corruption that goes in with just abortion itself as a system. Like, women are being taken advantage of. Like, I don't know if these women understand, but you being tricked into getting an abortion, like, do you understand how big of a fucking deal it is to remove a part of your body that is intertwined with all your blood vessels and blood systems and stuff like that? It is a big fucking deal. Women die from it still. Do you understand? Like, it's not a simple little, oh, you just take a pill and it's gone, bye-bye. No, it can be a traumatic event for a lot of women. You're killing a child that is growing inside you, a part of yourself. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent about the abortion, but it just makes me so angry. And, you know, especially as a woman who wants children. And, you know, I view it as sort of my duty to have children at this point, because, and I know this is like a weird thing to say, but bear with me. I come from a stable household. I had stable parents. I work hard. I take responsibility for myself. I'm at least somewhat conscientious, and I have a lot of ability, you know, like I can cook, I can clean, I can be a good partner, and I'm not necessarily the greatest in the workforce because I have sort of a more sensitive, I don't know, the constitution or something like that, you know, like, I'm just a more sensitive person. I don't like to deal with conflict, and so, you know, staying in the home environment, you know, feels better for me, you know, and essentially at some point in the future, that's gonna just be my reality, you know? Like, I don't know, I feel like it's the one thing I can give society, and so the way that I think about it is, when I have my children, I need to be a strong character, because they need somebody to look up to, and they need somebody that is going to teach them how to be competent in the world, because there's so many people out there who are not competent. And essentially the way I view it is, I have traits that would help my children survive and be successful in the world, and would, you know, I have the type of mentality where I want to make things better, you know, like, both of my sets of parents came from parents who wanted to make the world better for their children. You know, like, my dad's dad worked extremely hard to provide a home for, you know, his kids and his wife, who was a complete and total bitch, but, you know, we set that aside. But, you know, it's always been this stepward up motion. That's a very Christian sort of mentality, I think. And, you know, like, my dad, he did the same, and he did it so effectively that literally, you know, I live in the land of plenty. I don't have to worry about the things that I need. I mean, now that I'm living outside of my father's home, but he always took care of, like, my internet and my phone, which I'm still on his phone. I need to get off that. And then, you know, water, food, blah, 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 all this stuff. I had to pay $300 worth of rent every month in a town where rent for a one-bedroom apartment is at least $1,100, okay? So, I'm just trying to give you a picture of, like, the sort of stability that he set me into, you know, and so as I'm able to step out of that stability, and he let me live there until I was 25. I'm 25. I just moved out. You know, I've been able to step into another secure position with a guy that really loves me. And, you know, he sees me, and he looks at the way that, you know, my character is constructed, not just the way that I look, but who I am as a person, the fact that I can work hard, I can hold down a job, I can, you know, not only can I hold down a job, but I can get a promotion at a job, you know, like, and I'm not completely inexperienced in the ways of the world, and so, you know, I feel like just that upward motion of let's just keep this shit going, you know, it doesn't necessarily just mean my children. I'm not just making the world better for my children, but I do feel like I can make the world better through my children. There are a lot of women out there who use their children in abusive ways, and what ends up occurring is you end up with shitty people because of it. You know, a single mother who conceives a son because she wants to get on welfare so that the state will take care of her. Boy, that kid's gonna be fucked up for life. Okay, the kid is not gonna have the father around. Single mother households are the biggest producers of criminals and convicts and things like that. Whereas if you have a stable household, like one where I came from, like, do you see how mild and calm I am? I'm very wholesome. I'm mostly very mild in my talk. It's because I came from a stable, healthy household. And what you want is more people like me. Why? Because I'm not the type of person who gets in a fight. I'm not the type of person who wants to have an argument just for the sake of arguing. I'm the type of person who's just like, get down to fucking work, let's do our own shit and leave each other alone. And that's kind of what you want, right? You want the world to be like like what you would want it to be. So you have to raise your children that way. You know, like, there's this lady who comes in my store, and apparently, for whatever reason, I'm always the one who helps her, but she's got these 2 kids, and I get the vibe she might be a little crazy just because she's got purple hair, but she's a really decent lady, and I guess I'm judging a little bit. This is the Portland area, so you gotta like excuse the little weirdness here and there, but her kids were beautiful. They were lovely little children. Like little children, I mean teenagers, like, and that can sometimes be a hard time to get them to behave, but like these kids were like really helpful. They didn't have an attitude. They loaded the groceries onto the belt for their mother, and then they took the groceries off the little spinny thing and put it back into the cart for her. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And I gave her a compliment on it, and she's like, oh yeah, and you know, like it was the highlight of her day, I swear to God. But it's just like one of those things. It's so nice to see children who are actually civilized, you know, and that's the mother's job. Like, so many women, they and I am going to criticize women who work here now. If you're gone out of the household and you send your children away to daycare, who the hell is civilizing them? Like, and mind you, I have a sister who does work. But, you know, I also know the living situation of the child, where the child's going to preschool, and how much time and attention they spend with the child. And so what tends to happen with mothers who work, though, is that they let the people at the daycare raise their children. And then they come home and they're tired, so they don't spend time with their kids, and they prop them up in front of the fucking TV with YouTube or something playing in the background. And they go off and do their own fucking thing, and then they come back in the room, and fucking Elsa drinking piss out of a toilet is on there. Hashtag ElsaGate. Anyway. And so these children, they're getting all these negative influences, and there's no sort of regulation against it. And on top of it, these women... There's women out there, and by the way, those are decent mothers. Those are the decent mothers in our society nowadays. Are the ones who work all day, let daycare staffers raise their kids. By the way, you're spending way too much money on daycare. You could probably just be better off staying at home and having a little like home run business or something like that. I mean, there's probably something that you could do at home to make your family a little money, or just have a part-time job. You know, your husband comes home and you're just like, fuck honey, I need to get out of the house for 4 to 6 hours. I'm gonna go to my part-time job. But you really have to be involved in the raising of your child, the construction of their character, the implementing of value systems. Because if you don't, what ends up happening is you send your children off to this public school system where they start to teach all this transgenderism shit, and then they tell your 5-year-old child that, oh Johnny, you can be called Sally if you want to, but you don't have to ask your mommy's permission, and you don't have to tell them, we can keep it a secret, we're gonna turn you into a girl. Like, it's really disturbing, and you hear stuff like this in the news, and I'm like, personally, I'm considering not sending my children to the public school system, because I am so concerned about what the type of shit that they're gonna end up learning. I mean, I feel like I could raise my children and teach them better educationally in the home with an internet, you know, like, come on, there's fucking Khan Academy, there's, I could hire a tutor for, you know, the math and stuff like that, the shit that I'm not good at, which I'm not horrible at math. I could go probably up to algebra, at least through algebra, probably, if I went through and refreshed myself, but the whole point is that if you want to create a better future for your children, you have to create your children to create that better future for their own children, right? So your children are fundamentally part of that puzzle piece, that they are part of the puzzle pieces in the grand puzzle that's going to make it more beautiful and a better place for them to live. Creating them as decent, competent, hardworking, responsible human beings, that is one of the most important things that you can do for your child. That's what's going to create a better world. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to send my children out into the world with heads full of propaganda from the public school system. I want to be involved and viciously on them. Like, kids, what the fuck did you learn in school today? No, sit down. I know you go to a public school. Sit down. What craziness did they teach you today? I have to deconstruct that for you. Because it's like, what is truth and what is false and what's rationality, and there's so many things lacking in our society, and there's so many fucked up things, and it all branches from the way that we view children. We view them as tools and cattle, and just, they're basically livestock. We send them into the public school system to indoctrinate them into all the propaganda of our country, and from that point on, I mean, it's just this emptying process. It's like, oh, you thought this was right? Well, okay. Well, your natural inclinations are always wrong. And we're going to give you the Reconstructionist worldview on things. I think I actually got fairly lucky. I had two they weren't professors. They were probably as smart as professors, mind you. But, they're very intelligent men. They were my history teachers in 11th and 12th grade. And they taught me real history about, World War I, World War II, history of the Americas, history of Western civilization, essentially. And it was extremely informative in terms of how I actually view the world and Western civilization and all these things. And, I can understand why Vlad the Impaler happened. Like, the man was like, really? You're going to impale women and children and leave them just dangling there to rot in the sun? Well, fuck you. I'm going to do the same to you. Now, mind you, I'm not for that type of mentality. I'm more for the mentality of we can let Vlad do his thing, but in order to maintain the prosperity and to increase it, we need to focus on our children. We need to make them better people than ourselves. And we need to be honest with them about our own flaws. I can be honest with my own children as to the things that I fail at, the things that I'm weak at, my emotional insecurities, my emotional instabilities, and all those things. And, as a result, hopefully they'll be stronger, more capable, competent people. The final thought I would like to leave you with is this idea that, maybe, you should view your children as if they could be the salvation of the planet. Because they could. There has been a great lie, I believe, perpetrated on Christianity and Christian people. And the lie is that the Virgin Mary was a virgin. The Virgin Mary conceived when Joseph had sex with her. They had sex before they got married, which is why there was a little bit of shame and doubt surrounding the birth. But in general, Jesus was just a man. And mind you, I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ. But nowhere in the Bible does it say that he's actually the Son of God in any sort of physical sense. They always call him the Son of Man. They emphasize that time and time again. And you know what? I think it's been a really, really big disservice to our society to say that the Mary immaculately conceived. No, she conceived like any other woman does. And the thing about Mary is that God, before she conceived, before she had sex with Joseph, he told her, he said, you're going to conceive a child who is going to be the savior of the planet. Or, well, her nation, essentially. Which I would call savior of the planet at this point, like, Christianity has managed to become a very, very influential force. And, she must have took that to heart, because look at who Jesus turned out to be. He did save his nation, like, there is a lot of amazing things that have come out of Christianity, and he's one of the greatest teachers. So many positive things came out of him, and I really believe it was because he came from a solid, stable household. I believe Jesus was conceived by Mary, by Joseph, together in the heat of passion, but conceived in love, and Joseph provided a stable household and strong guidance to the man. And he grew up to be a great guy. And he was so great that they deified him in their histories and their writings and whatnot. And it's beautiful, and maybe he did resurrect. Maybe that's something that he could have done. But the rest of it, the rest of the deification, the rest of the mythology, I think it does a disservice to the character of Christ. He was proof that amazing things could happen. That's the whole point of those stories. And the beginning of the story, which has been so lost and obscured through time and history and through propaganda, the truth is that Christ had a father. He had a dad, and he came preaching a God who was a father, an example for men to follow. If your God is a father and you want to be like your God, you need to be your father yourself. And that's beautiful. It's foundational. It's what's led to the stability of Western civilization. We had rough spots, but once we figured out that whole family unit thing, especially like in the 50s, we were really like fucking chugging along with it, And every time that we let that slip away, we fall closer and closer and closer to destruction. And you see this happen time and time again, and it happens throughout the Bible time and time again. The strongest men are always the patriarchs, and they always provide stability and peacefulness for their families. And out of those patriarchs always comes another son who is another savior, another leader, another man to follow who is stable and can provide, guidance to the next generation. And what you want to do as a mother is build a man like that. You are so intricate in that system to create that child, to create that savior of the world, of civilization. You know what I mean? Like, you should not view your children as weapons and tools. That's not what they're there for. They're there to try to make this world a better place. And it's your job to help them do that. If you're bringing a child into this world, you need to love that thing. You need to cherish that thing. You need to cuddle and raise and construct that kid in the most genuine and kind and beautiful way possible. Because that's the type of world that you want to live in. And that's the type of world that you want your children and their children to live in. And so that's the way you need to construct them. Because, and I'm going to say this again, I made this comment in my last video, but we are essentially gods. We create so many amazing things with our hands. Like, we take oil out of the ground, which is, millions of years old, molecules that have been compressed from dead, decaying plant life. And we turn it into physical structures that we, put potatoes and shit in. Like, it's amazing. We have so much power, so much ability, and you really have to instill that in your children, because they have the ability to shape and mold their own environment. And to tell them that they can't, or to not tell them that they can, is incredibly disempowering. Because you can't come to that realization that you have power, that you have the ability to shape and mold your environment, unless somebody tells you, unless you are instilled with a sense of self-worth and self-confidence to go out and tackle that world, and tame that beast, and make it a better place for the future. Come on, don't you want that? So instead of viewing your children as a weapon or a tool to get what you want, to get the things, the material items that you want, all your focus should be on creating the best human being that you possibly can.